Hi everyone, welcome to goldfries, and in this video we'll have a look at the SilverStone RL08, which is an airflow oriented casing. And if you remember my Computex video, link above, the casing is my favorite casing from Computex 2019. On their showcase they had a cutout over here that displays the boot codes from the ASUS motherboard, but unfortunately this is not the model, and also it's cheaper. Speaking of price, in Malaysia it retails at RM379, and over in the rest of the world you can get it from Amazon at RM120 range. So this is a lovely casing. So let's start from the side. Tempered glass, and unlike other tempered glass, it has some frame around it, and you remove it by taking off the screw and sliding it backwards. Now, believe it or not, this is the casing that's actually at the back of my background for quite some time now. Can you see my hands on it? Okay, it was at the background here for quite a while, the dark colored thing. When I remove it from the background, I tell you, I got a shock of my life because I forgot that I did not screw this side panel onto the system, and it fell off. It hit a box and my feet or something. It doesn't hurt me, but I'm glad that it did not crack. Here's just I wonder whether you can see the form of protection. It's like framed nicely at the sides and all that, so it's not susceptible to any careless move like what I had. So as you can see from the inside, it is an inverted style of casing, meaning that the graphics card will be at the top with your fan being facing the top part, and the rest power supply is as what it is. And yes, the opening is on the left, or depending on which direction you come from. Normally the openings of casing is on this side, but this one is on this side. And speaking of which, let me try to open up this side. It's very tight and my screwdriver is not nearby, so I'm going to blank out the screen to get my screwdriver. And with my screwdriver in place, I am going to open up the sides over here for you to have a look. Bear with me for a bit. So this is the RL08. Oh, I forgot to mention, it's a micro ATX. It's a micro ATX casing. So yeah, before we open up that side, I like to highlight also that they have nice big grommets over here, right? And it even comes with a graphics card support in case you have a heavy card, and that's going to support your graphics card. And as for the fan, it has two fans up at the front. To what I know, these fans are unique to the RL08, meaning that if ever it spoils, there's no replacement from SilverStone. You'll be buying some other fans from SilverStone. This is not a fan that's already available from SilverStone in the market. Now, as for the back, you can see over here that the tray, from the motherboard tray to the casing cover, it's quite thick, which is about my finger, about 2 centimeters. Let me open up here, and you will see that it is a casing with good amount of space at the side. Over the front here, there's plenty of room for you to manage your cables. Drive cages here, more drive cages there, a big cutout for whatever backplate that you have, and that's pretty much it. Over the top, this is what it looks like, and yes, it's a magnetic dust filter. And over the front, it's actually easily removed. Just pull from the front here, and then it's already open. Let me open it from this way. It's a little bit tricky. Bear with me. All right, so this is, and we are back with a completed build with a Ryzen 5 2600, this AMD's Wraith Prism cooler, and RTX 2080 card from Galax. So you can see it is a casing that can house a fully complete built large graphics card. You can even put tall coolers up to about 168 centimeters, 168 millimeters. It'll work just fine. So let's go into the deep dive of the casing itself. First things first, front, lovely, as you can see, the RGB fans, I put it in red color. At the back, you will see that it's nice too. So from the back over here down to and up to the front here, it is of a powder coated paint, lovely finish, right? So overall, in terms of appearance, it's good. In terms of modding capability, I think it's good as well, considering the front is plain, everything, it looks great. Overall, design-wise, for like cable management, for example, it's a little bit tricky because the power supply, typically a power supply's connection, as in the cables that come out of the power supply box, is on this side. So in order to drag it all the way from the back to the top, you might have a limitation. I had a limitation here where I'm using the 10G power supply from Epcor & Co. It's a non-modular unit, and I had problem getting the power supply cable to reach this point. So as you can see, I'm using my PCIe 8-pin power connection extension cable over to this part. And then there are, over at the tray, the motherboard tray, there are very little cutouts as well. So it can be a little bit of an issue when it comes to dragging cables around. For example, the power supply, the CPU 12 volt power connection over here at the motherboard, you might want to connect it first before you assemble the board onto the system, because some motherboards have much bigger heatsink over at the VRM area, so that might hinder the connection of the cable. Furthermore, the cable, as you can see, I'm wondering if you can see, for this one, I extended the cable out from the rubber grommet that covers the cutout over here above the power supply shroud. I'm using a flat type of cable, so it does all right. But just bear in mind that there might be complications if you decided to mount the board and heatsink first, and then you might, if you have big hands and all that, you might struggle on that aspect. That aside, one thing I also didn't like about this casing is that they included a 5.5-inch drive bay. And how many people nowadays, actually use 5.25-inch drive bays? No one that I know of actually uses it. It's pretty much a dead thing. So in doing that, they had a problem. I cannot use a card of this size without first unmounting the drive cage. And to unmount the drive cage, it's quite a hassle. The usual thing, you have to take away a few screws and remove the thing before you get to install a card on it like this. So, and because of the drive bay, this means their fans are shifted downwards. It would have been better if the fan was at the top, because it definitely can push more air to the graphics card, not that it matters. We'll touch on the thermals a bit later. But basically my point is that right now, if you look at the, oops, caught my finger there. It's a little bit difficult to show you right now, but it doesn't matter. Currently the fan starts from this point and ends at this point. So the bulk of the air is pointing to the block by the power supply shroud, which does no benefit. And if they had shifted it up a bit, then the graphics card, and in fact the whole system, will have better airflow, more like efficient use of air, I would say it that way. We'll get into thermals a bit later. So my gripe on the cooling and all that is this, and also the power supply area. The power supply area is another thing. You can't fit a power supply into this area without first dismantling the drive cage. The 3.5-inch drive bays are underneath. Is a cage with a 3-tier on it. It totally blocks the assembly of the power supply. So I had to dismantle it. And it's not just 1 screw, 2 screws, it's 5 screws. 1 at the back, 4 at the bottom. So imagine the hassle of, if you ever need to replace a power supply, you need to dismantle all these things. Means if you have any drives on the bay itself, that means you are in for a lot of work just to remove. In fact, you don't exactly get to remove. I dismantle it. I can't remove the drive cage. I can shift the position forward so that I can put the power supply in, but that's as far as I can go. I can't exactly remove it. Whew. Then let's talk about thermals. So let me recap. Design-wise, modding appearance-wise looks good. Modding capability, I think is good. The design, I see for the cable, this routing the cable and whatever else, is alright. Front part, I'm a little bit disappointed. Oh yeah, let me show you guys the back. The back is spacious. Even with this, when I do this kind of setup, I don't actually cable management to perfection. But this is just to show you, even without cable management, yeah, you have plenty of space to chuck all your cables in. So, thermals. So, my first test is I place a thermal sensor probe over here at this area between the fan and the cooler, and it's actually good. Without the fan on, it's pretty much like the room temperature of 28 degrees Celsius. With the fan on, the temperature actually drops. So it does prove that the fan actually moves the air. So this is a tissue, a ply of tissue from a twin ply kind of tissue from a toilet paper, and you can put it there, and yes, it sticks. Airflow is definitely there. All right. Suffice to say, the air even at the back here, it's moving. Let me turn it around, and so you can see some of the movement of, barely can see it, but yes, it's actually moving. I'm probably going to have a B-roll for you to have a look at the air movement. So that's good, but the problem with this casing is that despite being, like the older RL models, they are airflow oriented. This one, however, fails a bit. For the CPU part, it's alright. The airflow is good. I can feel the air going in and out. When I did blender test for the Ryzen 5 2600 over with the Wraith Prism, I get 67 around that range of reading, peak temperature that is. Whether it's closed casing with airflow or open casing, the temperature is the same. So this means that the airflow is good. We want it to be the same or better with the air being pushed. So that's a definite good thing. But it is the exact opposite for the graphics card. With the casing open, I get 55 degrees Celsius running superposition 1080p extreme with the maximum RPM set to the fans. That's 55. When I close the casing, I'm getting 58. So this is the peak temperature. And why does this happen? It took me a while to figure out. It's not surprising because there's the intake here, no matter how, does not flow air on the graphics card. At most, it flows on the backplate. Here, there's no intake and whatever else, so it practically does nothing. So the intake is all from the top. So whether you close or open the casing, the intake is from the top. But the difference is that when you close the casing, look at the fins on the graphics card. So the hot air will be rising up from the sides, or should I say, in this case, top and the bottom of the card, going to the sides of the casing. So where does the air go? The air doesn't go, it will go both ways. It will go down and up. The air that goes down will not be affecting this CPU cooler much because the airflow is moving, right? So that is good. The problem is the top. When it goes to the top, where does it go? It gets sucked in again by the fans, the dual fans here. Unlike if you have the casing open, the air goes outwards. It can still grab air from the top and the side here, meaning that the hot air does not actually go up and get reused on the GPU. So right now I'm going to show you the graph that I plotted, which I think will give you a better idea on how the heat build up happens in this casing. And not that it's bad, you still can use a graphics card. I mean, if I run it on auto, it's still not touching 80 degrees Celsius. But the reason I'm running it at max RPM and superposition test is to show you a constant, something that I can replicate and show you how the temps are. So, and if you look at the product, this is a picture from the product page, you'll see that anyone with some form of logic will be able to tell you that this is extremely bad for the graphics card. It has two cards there, but the airflow is only for the parts that are not within the card's range. So the heat is practically trapped and recycled. So that's not a good idea. Definitely not a good setup. I don't know why SilverStone uses that as an example. Maybe it looks cool, but it does not cool. Yeah. Overall, I think this casing is nice. Overall, it's all right. Speaking of graphics card precision, it also depends on your motherboard. This motherboard, for example, the graphics card is around here. The graphics card is around here because of the motherboard's placement on the PCIe. In some cases, the PCIe slot is a little bit closer to the CPU, so you get the graphics card going lower. That might actually have a, how you say, a better, it might actually work better because there'll be more space, more airflow. But in this setup, I'm happening to use the one with the PCIe slot, which is slightly above. There's pros and cons to whichever one. I mean, I like that the graphics card is having a bit of gap over the CPU, but then I actually don't mind but this is a rather thick card. In this case, it actually looks, the space will be quite balanced actually when we have this kind of distance. Well, for motherboards, I'm using this is the B450M AC from ASRock. I also have if I were used to be using the X570M Pro 4 that I like, then it would have gone a bit lower and more spacious. And yes, I do think that the temperature might be better if it's placed there. But unfortunately, I've already set up this rig, and I don't intend to reset up again. So there are many other boards with PCIe slots at around this location. For example, this is a micro ATX casing. So stuff like ASRock's B450M Steel Legend is also of this configuration. Why do I quote them? Because these are the only models that I remember. I don't have a catalog of many brands in my head. As you can remember the other video that I did, remember about the AMD Airbar update, those are the boards. So that's why I can quote it out, right? Oh, and I've done other reviews here and there. So okay, basically that's it. I'm gonna give, this is still a good casing. I'm giving a silver badge. It's just that I hope that SilverStone do consider these changes. Do away with the drive bay. No one actually uses it. It's ugly. It hinders installation of big graphics card. In fact, I would that they put two 140mm fans, place it higher so that we get air flow where it really counts, which is the top. No air is going to actually use this part. I'm just going to show you guys. I always click my finger on there. But you see, if you can see it here, look. I know there's an ugly thing over here. That's where the casing was. So the fans here are doing nothing at this part. No one needs air at this part, really. The power supply is going to draw the air from the bottom. No one actually needs air here unless you really actually have drives there. Maybe even that is not going to be effective because it's just one tiny portion of it. A casing of this height could actually probably, I think, will be able to fit 320 mm, I guess. I think it will. I haven't measured. Don't quote me for that. Actually, you can quote me for that, but doesn't matter. Overall, yes, silver badge. And we'll come to the end of this video. I still like this casing. It's just that know your limitations on what you have around here and you're good to go. Alright, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.